The night everything finally snapped didn't start with shouting. It didn't start with some dramatic movie-style explosion. It started with a quiet driveway at 10:14 p.m., an empty spot where my car used to be, and a sinking feeling in my chest that felt way too familiar. I remember standing there, cold wind hitting my face, staring at that stupid patch of asphalt like it had personally betrayed me. My car wasn't old, but it wasn't new either. It was mine. Every payment, every overtime shift, every weekend I skipped hanging out, all of that lived inside that car. And seeing it gone felt like someone had ripped a piece straight out of my ribs. My first thought wasn't theft. It should have been, but it wasn't. My first thought was her, my sister, the golden child, the favorite, the one who could burn the house down and somehow get praised for keeping things interesting. Growing up, Mom always said she had a fiery spirit. Dad said she was just misunderstood. And me, I was the responsible one, which was basically code for invisible. I didn't make noise, didn't cause chaos, didn't require constant rescuing. They loved rescuing her. It made them feel heroic. It made them feel needed. Me? I didn't give them anything to fix, so they didn't see me. And that night, as I stood in that empty driveway, I already knew the truth. She took it. Again. My phone buzzed at that exact moment. Not a call, of course not, just a text. Borrowed the car, don't freak out. That was it. No apology, no explanation, no question, no permission. Borrowed. Like my life was a self-serve station and she had permanent VIP access. I felt the anger rising in my throat, hot and sharp. But under it, under all that fury, was something else. Something softer. Something that hurt more. I felt stupid. Stupid because I knew she'd do something like this. Stupid because I still hoped every single time that maybe she wouldn't. Stupid because I still believed my parents would finally say, "This isn't right." But they never did. I walked inside, car keys still in my hand, even though I had no car to unlock. My parents were in the living room watching some home renovation show, laughing like everything was great. Mom glanced at me, then at the clock, and her smile faded. Oh God, what now? She said it like I was the inconvenience. Dad muted the TV, sighing like I'd ruined the night. What's the problem this time? I didn't shout, didn't cry. I just said 4 words. She took my car. Mom blinked slowly. Dad rubbed his forehead, and in that moment I already knew exactly how they were going to respond. And I was right. Dad said, "Don't make this a big deal." Mom added, "You know how she is." And for the first time in my life, something inside me whispered back, "And you know how I'm done." I don't know what I expected after years of this. Maybe a little shock. Maybe a hint of disappointment directed at her instead of at me. Maybe just once they'd say, "She can't do that." But no, same script, same tone, same shrug. Their faces didn't show surprise. They showed annoyance at me, like I was the one disrupting the family peace they pretended existed. I stood there in the doorway while they exchanged that look parents give each other when they think the problem isn't the child. It's the child complaining. Dad grabbed the remote again, like he was ready to unpause his show right in the middle of my sentence. "She didn't even ask," I said quietly. Mom scoffed. "Well, maybe she couldn't reach you. You know how forgetful you are with your phone." That one hit harder than it should have. I wasn't forgetful. My sister was. But somehow, every flaw she had was considered quirky, and every flaw they imagined I had was treated like fact. Dad finally spoke again, this time not even looking at me. "She'll bring it back. You don't have anywhere to be tonight anyway." That was the moment something clicked. It wasn't just that they didn't defend me. It wasn't that they excused her. It was the casual way he said it. Like my time, my freedom, my existence didn't matter. Like I was a placeholder, not a person. "Actually," I said, "I do have somewhere to be. I had plans." Mom raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "With who?" That question said everything. She didn't ask about my plans. She asked who I could possibly matter to. I swallowed hard. Does it matter? It does, she said, because if it was important, you would have told us. There it was, their favorite trick. Redefine reality until I looked unreasonable. My silence meant I wasn't doing enough. My speaking up meant I was overreacting. My boundaries meant nothing. Her chaos meant everything. You always do this, I whispered, more to myself than to them. You always take her side. Dad finally looked up, annoyed. It's not about sides. It's about being understanding. She's your sister. And I'm your daughter, I said. The room went so quiet I could hear the air conditioner hum. Mom opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. Maybe she didn't expect me to say it out loud. Maybe she didn't like hearing herself reflected back in the truth. Dad sighed again, the kind of sigh that said he was tired of me merely existing. We're not having this conversation tonight. That's when my phone buzzed again, another text from my sister. Might keep the car overnight, don't wait up. No apology, no respect, no guilt, nothing. I turned the screen toward them. See, this is what you're defending. Mom shook her head. She's just struggling right now. Try to have some compassion. And for the first time in my life, I finally said the thing I'd held inside for years. Who's ever had compassion for me? The question hung in the air like smoke, thick, uncomfortable, impossible to ignore. Mom's expression flickered, just for a second, like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. Dad looked away, staring at the TV as if the answer might magically appear in the corner of the screen. But nothing came, because they both knew the truth. Compassion in our house wasn't something everyone got. It was something only she got. My sister, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong even when she was literally driving away in a car she didn't own. Mom finally spoke, but her voice was softer, almost rehearsed. We've always supported you. A strange laugh escaped me, sharp, humorless. Supported me? When? Name one time. Dad's jaw tightened. Don't be dramatic. There it was again. My least favorite word. Whenever I told the truth, they called it drama. Whenever my sister caused chaos, they called it stress. Guess who was always expected to carry the fallout? Mom crossed her arms. You always make things so negative. I'm not making them negative, I said. I'm calling them what they are. Dad grabbed the remote again, muttering, I'm not arguing all night. You're not arguing, I said. You're avoiding. He didn't like that. His eyes snapped up, cold and irritated. Watch your tone. That was their shortcut. Watch your tone. A way to shut down conversations they didn't want to manage. I'd heard it my whole life. They used it like a shield whenever I got too close to the truth. I took a breath. I'm not yelling. I'm not being rude. I'm just asking to be treated like I matter. Mom shook her head. You do matter. Not to you. The silence that followed was the kind that exposes everything. They didn't rush to correct me. They didn't deny it. They didn't comfort me. They didn't say the words any child deserves to hear. They just stared. And that's when something inside me cracked open, a mix of sadness, anger, and that strange clarity people talk about when they finally see their life for what it is. You know, I said quietly, when I got into college, you barely reacted. When I got my promotion, you said, don't brag. When I saved enough to buy that car, you said I was making too big a deal out of it. But when she gets a new tattoo or quits another job or shows up crying because she lost her wallet, you treat it like a national emergency. Mom frowned. She's sensitive. And I'm not? Dad rolled his eyes. You're stronger. You can handle things. There it was. The excuse wrapped like a compliment, used to justify years of emotional neglect. I shouldn't have to be stronger, I said. I should just get the same amount of care. Mom reached for a different tactic. She's going through a difficult time. She's always going through a difficult time, I said, and I'm always expected to sacrifice myself to make it easier for her. Dad didn't respond. Mom looked uncomfortable. Good. It meant they finally felt even a small fraction of what I'd felt my whole life. But before either of them could say another word, I said the sentence that surprised even me. I'm done being the backup daughter. The words slipped out before I even had time to second-guess them, but once they were spoken, I didn't regret them, not even a little. Dad stared at me like I'd just spoken a language he didn't understand, and Mom blinked, confused, almost offended, like I was the one suddenly rewriting the rules of our family. The backup daughter? Mom repeated, her voice thin. Yes, I said. That's what I've always been to you, the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who doesn't ask for anything because asking only gets me labeled as dramatic or ungrateful, the one you turn to only when you need something handled, and every single time I do it, and you don't even notice. Dad leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. This is getting ridiculous. No, I said, my voice steady. This is me finally saying out loud what you've pretended not to see. Mom tried to soften her tone, which somehow made it worse. Sweetheart, you're taking this too far. Families argue. It doesn't mean you're the backup anything. I shook my head. It's not about arguments. It's about priorities. It's about patterns. It's about the fact that she stole my car and your first response was to defend her. Dad rubbed his temples. We just don't want to fight. You're not fighting, I said. You're siding. There's a difference. That landed. Hard. Mom opened her mouth again, but the sentence fell apart before she could form it. They weren't used to this side of me. The me who didn't swallow everything just to keep the peace. The me who didn't go quiet to make the evening easier for them. I took a step closer, not aggressive, just firm. Do you know the last time you asked me if I was okay? Actually okay? Not, how's work? As small talk. I mean, genuinely asked how I was. Mom looked away. Dad stayed silent. That's what I thought, I said. You don't ask because you assume I'm fine, because I always have been. But being fine doesn't mean being loved. Mom flinched slightly at that. And meanwhile, I continued, she breathes wrong and it's a crisis. She makes a mistake and she's trying. She steals my car and have compassion. But when I get exhausted or stressed or hurt or angry, it's stop being dramatic. Dad finally spoke. We raised you both the best we could. I nodded. I know you did what you knew, but that doesn't make it right. And it doesn't change how it felt growing up in a house where one kid was a project and the other kid was a plan B. Mom's voice cracked. You're twisting things. No, I said gently. I'm remembering them. For a moment, all three of us stood there. Years of unspoken resentment sitting between us like furniture we'd been pretending wasn't in the room. Then I said it. I'm done letting you treat me like the stable one who doesn't need anything. I'm done pretending this dynamic doesn't exist. And I'm done sacrificing myself so she can continue doing whatever she wants. Mom swallowed hard. So what are you saying? I looked both of them in the eye. I'm saying things are going to change. Dad's eyes narrowed, not in anger but in disbelief, like change wasn't something that could happen to them, like the family system they'd built was too sacred, too fixed, too untouchable for me to challenge. Change how? He asked, voice low. Change in the way I let you treat me, I said. Change in the expectations you pile on me because I'm the responsible one. Change in what I tolerate. Mom shifted uncomfortably, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous habit she only showed when she didn't feel in control of the conversation. We don't expect anything unreasonable from you. I actually laughed, quiet, tired, sad. Mom, come on, you expect everything from me. I'm the one who shows up first when something goes wrong. I'm the one who handles emergencies. I'm the one who gets called when she disappears for a weekend. I'm the one who smooths things over when she starts fights at family dinners. I'm the one who gets told to keep the peace, and I'm the one who gets blamed when I finally say I'm overwhelmed. Dad raised an eyebrow. You never told us you were overwhelmed. Because every time I do, you roll your eyes, I said. Every time I say I'm tired, you say, that's life. Every time I say I need help, you tell me I've always been good at managing things. Mom looked genuinely confused. Is that bad? It is when it's used as a reason to ignore what I need, I said. It is when you only care about the child who struggles while taking the child who survives for granted. Dad looked annoyed again. Your sister is going through a lot. And so am I said, finally raising my voice, not in anger but in volume because it felt like the only way they'd hear me. I'm just better at hiding it. That stunned them into silence. I continued, softer now. You don't realize how exhausting it is to be the strong one. You think it's praise, but it's pressure. You think it's a compliment, but it's a cage. It means I'm not allowed to break down. I'm not allowed to mess up. I'm not allowed to ask for anything. Mom's voice trembled. We didn't mean to. I know, I said. But meaning well doesn't undo the impact. Dad rubbed his face. So what do you want us to do? For the first time, the question didn't feel dismissive. It felt real. I want you to stop assuming I'll always be fine, I said. I want you to stop treating my needs like an inconvenience. I want you to stop excusing everything she does and holding me responsible for holding the family together. Mom blinked back tears, not dramatic ones, small ones, real ones, the kind that come when someone finally sees the damage they didn't know they caused. And I want boundaries, I added, real ones, not the kind you roll your eyes at, the kind you respect. Dad nodded slowly like the idea was foreign but not impossible. Okay, we can try. I exhaled, a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for years. Then I said the line that would change everything. And that starts with you calling her and telling her to bring my car back tonight. The air shifted. Dad's hand froze halfway to his pocket where his phone was. Mom's face cycled through confusion, resistance, and finally, something that looked almost like understanding. Tonight? Dad said, like the word was foreign. Yes, tonight, I repeated. Not tomorrow morning, not when she feels like it. Tonight. Mom started to protest, but she said she needs it. I don't care what she said she needs, I interrupted, and my voice didn't shake. She didn't ask, she didn't check, she just took. And you're going to call her and tell her that's not acceptable anymore. Dad looked at Mom. Mom looked at Dad. This was the moment where they'd either prove that things could actually change or they'd prove that everything I'd just said was pointless. And if we don't? Dad asked, not defiant, just testing. I met his eyes without blinking. Then I leave, not just this room, this house. And I stop being the person you call when you need something fixed. Mom's breath caught. You don't mean that. I absolutely do, I said, because I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not being the safety net while she gets to be the trapeze artist. I'm not being ignored until I'm useful. I'm not being the child you remember only when the other one lets you down. The truth was, I didn't know if I had the strength to actually walk away, but saying it out loud made it real, made it possible. And for the first time, I felt like I had a choice. Dad pulled out his phone slowly like he was moving through water. His thumb hovered over her name in his contacts. What do I say? He asked quietly. And that question, that simple, vulnerable question, was the first crack in the wall. Tell her the truth, I said. Tell her she needs to bring the car back because it's not hers. Tell her this isn't okay. Tell her there are consequences. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. She'll be upset. Good, I said, and I meant it. Maybe she should be upset. Maybe that's what accountability feels like. Dad pressed call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then her voice, bright and careless, came through the speaker. Hey, Dad, what's up? Dad glanced at me, then at Mom, then back at the phone. You need to bring the car back, he said. There was a pause on the other end. What? Why? I told her I'd bring it back tomorrow. Tonight, Dad said, and his voice was firmer now. It's not your car. You didn't ask. You need to bring it back tonight. Another pause. Longer this time. Are you serious right now? Yes. I watched my father's face as he said that single word, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Resolve. Not anger, not frustration, just a quiet, steady resolve. This is ridiculous, my sister said, her voice rising. I'm literally 20 minutes away. I'll bring it back in the morning. What's the big deal? The big deal, Dad said, and he looked at me as he spoke, is that it's not yours, and your sister needs it, and you didn't ask. Silence. Then finally, in a voice that was half disbelief, half indignation, Fine, whatever, I'll bring it back. She hung up. Dad lowered the phone and stared at it like it had just done something miraculous. Mom sat frozen on the couch, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes glassy. She's going to be so mad, Mom whispered. Let her be mad, I said softly. I've been mad for years. And for the first time in my life, I saw my mother truly hear me. We stood there in that living room, the three of us surrounded by the wreckage of a family dynamic that had just been dismantled. It wasn't fixed. It wasn't healed. But it was different. And different was a start. 37 minutes later, I heard the sound of my car pulling into the driveway. The engine cut off. A car door slammed, hard. Then the front door opened and my sister walked in, her face a storm of anger and disbelief. She threw my keys onto the coffee table. They skidded across the surface and stopped just short of falling off the edge. Happy, she snapped, looking directly at me. I picked up the keys, feeling the familiar weight of them in my palm. No, I said honestly, but it's a start. She looked at our parents, waiting for them to jump in, to defend her, to smooth things over like they always did. But they stayed quiet. And in that silence, something shifted. My sister's face changed, not softened, but confused, like the rules of the game had changed and no one had told her. Unbelievable, she muttered, turning toward the stairs. Wait, I said. She stopped but didn't turn around. I love you, I said. But I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not being the person you take from without asking. I'm not being the person who's just expected to deal with it. She looked back at me then, and for just a second, I saw something that wasn't anger. Maybe it was hurt. Maybe it was realization. Maybe both. You've changed, she said quietly. No, I replied. I just stopped pretending. She didn't respond. She just walked upstairs, and I heard her bedroom door close. I looked at my parents. They looked exhausted, not physically, but emotionally, like they'd just run a marathon they didn't know they'd signed up for. This is going to be hard, Mom said. I know, I said, but it's necessary. Dad nodded slowly. We'll try. We will. I wanted to believe him. Part of me did. Part of me knew it would take more than one night, more than one conversation, more than one returned car to undo years of patterns. But it was something. It was a beginning. I walked outside, keys in hand, and stood next to my car. I ran my fingers along the hood, cold and smooth under the night sky. It was just a car, but it was also a symbol, a line drawn, a boundary set. I got in, started the engine, and drove. Not far, just around the block, just to feel the control again, just to remind myself that some things in life were mine, and I had every right to protect them. When I came back, the house was quiet. The lights in my parents' room were off. My sister's room was dark. I parked in the driveway, in my spot, and sat there for a moment, engine idling, and I realized something. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the backup. I felt like the main character in my own story, and that was worth fighting for.